impossible. How are they doing that? The muttered disbelief of General Thorne resonated through the command center, his eyes glued to the feed watching live from that arena. The Galactic Games were a reality, and the Korna had been champions for millennia against, of all things, humans. It was 2234, and mankind had finally reached out to the stars as a part of the Galactic Union, an interstellar coalition made up by hundreds of species. The Earth had made a quick progression, but humans were still considered newcomers, unsophisticated primitives, certainly not worth as another drop in the bucket. For thousands of years, the Galactic Games had been a fabled rite of passage and trial by fire to prove physical strength, mental acuity, and strategic prowess. Throughout the galaxy, raw and sophisticated battles of strength saws all summer as best from across space fought for Dominion ship honor in order that their species would be seen privileged for a generation. But this year, that all would change. Humanity. The long shot was about to rewrite everything. For Zara, a planet well-regulated with the competent technology of neutral ground, their supporters were on edge in an enormous stadium. Crowds from across the galaxy bustled to their seats, all eyes converging on the colossal stadium as the opening ceremony loomed. Holographic banners danced in the ocean air, announcing the emblems of each species as their competitors, followed by drones, shot through to provide footage for fast and furious live streaming. The arena roared as the different teams walked in, yet none was louder than when Korna went. They had certainly lived up to their reputation as unbeatable warriors. The Glira, known for their unparalleled intellect and telepathic abilities, followed, their entrance marked by a wave of mental energy that resonated through the crowd. The Shirans, aquatic beings with unmatched agility and grace, were next, their movements fluid and synchronized. Finally, the human team emerged. A diverse group of men and women, each representing the best of Earth, marched with quiet determination. The applause was polite but subdued, as most of the audience had low expectations for these newcomers. Among the human team were Captain Elena Vasquez, a decorated military strategist, Dr. Samuel Green, a leading neuroscientist, and Marcus Lee, a tech prodigy with a penchant for breaking the rules. As the human team took their place among the competitors, General Thorne scoffed. "They won't last the first round," he muttered to himself, unaware of the surprises in store. The first event, the Gauntlet of Strength, was a brutal test of physical prowess. Competitors had to navigate an obstacle course designed to push them to their limits. Massive walls, electrified barriers, and boulders that needed to be lifted or smashed. The Korna were the undisputed favorites, their towering physiques and raw power seemingly unmatched. As the event began, the Korna stormed through the course, smashing through obstacles with ease. Their confidence was palpable, and the crowd cheered with every feat of strength. The Shirans, relying on their agility, weaved through the obstacles with speed and grace, while the Glira used their telekinesis to bypass some of the more challenging parts of the course. Then, it was the humans' turn. Captain Vasquez led the way, her movements precise and controlled. When they reached the first major obstacle, a series of boulders that had to be lifted onto a platform, the Korna had already set a high bar. But instead of brute force, Vasquez tapped her wrist, activating a device that projected a force field around the boulders. With a simple gesture, she guided the boulders into place with minimal effort. The crowd gasped in disbelief. "They're using technology," someone shouted, but Vasquez remained unfazed. The rules allowed for creative solutions, and the humans had found a loophole that no one else had considered. As the human team completed the course in record time, General Thorne's expression shifted from disdain to concern. The humans weren't playing by the expected rules, and that made them dangerous. The second event, the Maze of the Mind, was a test of intellect and mental fortitude. Competitors had to navigate a shifting labyrinth filled with puzzles, traps, and illusions, designed to challenge even the sharpest minds. The Glira, with their telepathic abilities, were the reigning champions, able to anticipate and avoid traps before they even materialized. The maze itself was a marvel of alien design, walls that shifted like liquid, pathways that twisted and turned without warning, and puzzles that adapted to the mental patterns of those who approached them. The Glira entered the maze with an air of superiority, confident in their abilities. But as the human team stepped into the maze, led by Dr. Samuel Green, they took a different approach. Instead of trying to outthink the maze, they seemed to flow with it, moving slowly and deliberately, analyzing every change in the environment. Dr. Green, with his deep understanding of neural patterns, recognized the maze for what it was, a sentient construct designed to react to the thoughts and emotions of its participants. He began to speak softly to his team, guiding them with calming words and measured advice. Don't fight it. Let it guide you. As they progressed, the maze's traps seemed to lose their potency, unable to latch on to the human's steady mental state. When they reached the final puzzle, a complex algorithm that even the Glira had struggled with, Dr. Green inputted a series of commands into his wrist computer, linking it to the maze's neural network. The maze shimmered, and the path to the exit revealed itself. The Glira, who had prided themselves on their intellectual superiority, watched in stunned silence as the humans emerged from the maze, victorious once again. But the real twist came when Dr. Green revealed that the maze had not been hacked. Instead, the humans had used a form of quantum resonance to sync their minds with the maze's sentience, effectively becoming one with it. The Glira, who had relied on their telepathy, had never considered such a radical approach. The shock waves of this victory rippled through the arena. The humans had shown that they weren't just clever. They were redefining what it meant to compete in the Galactic Games. As the games progressed, the human team's victories became harder to dismiss as mere luck. Their strategies were unconventional, their technology advanced, and their ability to adapt was unmatched. Each event brought new surprises, and with each win, the tension in the stadium grew. The other teams began to change their tactics, attempting to counter the humans' unpredictability. The Charons tried to outmaneuver them in agility-based challenges, but the humans anticipated every move. The Corna doubled down on brute force, but found themselves outmatched by human ingenuity. Even the Glira, with all their mental powers, struggled to keep up. By the time the final event approached, the human team had become the talk of the galaxy. News broadcasts across the Union debated their chances, while analysts tried to predict their next move. The humans, however, remained tight-lipped, their strategy a closely guarded secret. The final event, the Battle Royale, was a combat simulation, where teams fought in a virtual environment until only one remained. It was a test of strategy, teamwork, and combat prowess. The Corna, with their raw strength, were the clear favorites, while the Glira planned to use their telepathy to anticipate and counter their opponents' moves. As the simulation began, the virtual landscape shifted and morphed, creating a dynamic battlefield filled with hazards and opportunities. The Corna charged in headfirst, using their brute force to overpower smaller teams. The Charons darted through the terrain, striking quickly and retreating before they could be caught. The Glira used their telepathy to predict enemy movements, laying traps and setting ambushes. But the humans had vanished. As the battle raged on, the human team seemed to be nowhere in sight, their presence marked only by the occasional disappearance of a competitor. The other teams began to turn on each other, unsure of where the real threat was coming from. Then, one by one, the competitors started to fall, taken out by unseen forces. The Corna were the first to fall, their brute strength rendered useless against an enemy they couldn't see. The Charons, with their agility, were next, their speed no match for the precision strikes that seemed to come from every direction. The Glira, despite their telepathic abilities, were left guessing, unable to predict the moves of an enemy that had become a ghost. As the simulation reached its climax, the humans reappeared in the center of the battlefield, holding the deactivated control cores of the other teams. They hadn't just won. They had taken control of the entire simulation, turning the Battle Royale into a human victory from the moment it began. The crowd fell silent, their disbelief palpable. For the first time in the history of the Galactic Games, one species had dominated every event through sheer ingenuity, adaptability, and a refusal to play by the old rules. As the human team stood victorious, the atmosphere in the stadium was electric. Captain Vasquez, her face a mix of pride and humility, addressed the crowd. "We didn't come here to conquer or to prove our superiority. We came here to show that the future belongs to those who dare to think differently." Her words echoed through the arena, resonating with every species present. The Galactic Games had always been a test of strength, intelligence, and strategy, but the humans had shown that innovation and adaptability were just as important. General Thorne, his expression unreadable, approached the human team. "You have changed the game," he said, his voice tinged with respect. "The galaxy will never be the same." Captain Vasquez nodded. "We hope so." The victory of the human team was more than just a win. It was a declaration that the galaxy's old order was changing. Humanity, once seen as the weakest of the Union, had proven that the mind is the greatest weapon of all. As the Galactic Games ended, the other species knew one thing for certain. The next 50 cycles would be very different, with humanity leading the charge into a future where no one could afford to underestimate the power of innovation and unpredictability. And so, the legend of the humans who made alien jaws drop spread across the stars, a reminder that the greatest victories often come from those who refuse to play by the rules.